how McQueen, you just put forward kind of a roadmap for implementing a portal on the intranet.
Yes.
Can you summarize your key points there?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I think perhaps the most important thing that needs to be done is have some activities that involve the business end users. And I believe what that means is once the organization creates some sketches of their key audience segments, and by the way, those are called persona, then you need to appoint someone to continue to advocate for those key audience segments, the persona advocate. Senior, highly respected member of the organization, and they get involved in leading all kinds of user-centered design activities. Anything from information architecture to card sorting, to doing visual designs, to championing groups of end-user focus groups. All these things business users can do really well. They have a hard time understanding technology, but they don't have a hard time expressing their requirements in terms of good design. And the quicker the organization can come up with some really good user-centric design, the easier it's going to be to hand those designs off to the IT people, and you end up with a stronger and better solution. Besides, you also bring the business users back in to test the software in its early phases, to do extensive usability testing.
You talked about the strengths and the weaknesses of the IT department.
Yes.
And where you as a portal or intranet team should step in.
Yep.
Where is that specifically that you should step in and kind of lift the competence or the quality of the work they're doing in IT?
Sure. And what we know for sure is where IT needs the most support, and that is in developing these audience profiles. And because the profiles really talk to requirements for information, for services, and for productivity tools. And the more that we can look at, not at the technology per se, but the requirements for content information, and then map that back into content contributors and content stewards, and into content management, the better we'll be able to help not only launch an initial portal, but continue to keep the portal really strong, because you'll keep the content channels really strong and working really well. Trust in information will be very high.
You also made a strong case, of course, for user-centered design in general, and persona and persona advocacy specifically.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
I really believe that most organizations that create personas, they do a good job in that very first stage, creating this attractive piece of paper that describes the users. But the real success in persona is extending that, keeping that alive. And there's nothing like persona advocacy, to have a business user step in and say, I own that persona, that description, and I'm going to take that and extend that through design techniques, through creating visual designs, through creating information architectures that work for me and my group, and really evolve that. Now, since design is really kind of new to a lot of organizations, it's helpful to have someone that can facilitate this process. So look for credentialed outside consultants that can come in and can facilitate this process. Because ultimately, if we're able to do design up front, as much as 40% of the project involves design and persona advocacy, we can then hand off those deliverables to the IT people and end up with a much stronger final solution.
Yeah, the last question, coming back to the 40% that you suggested that we should spend up front in designing, there were some questions from the room and some experiences saying that might be hard when you are on a time schedule from the CEO.
Yeah.
What should you do about that?
The number one thing that plagues portal programs is these unreasonable expectations for how quickly they're going to happen. And like you hear things like 8 to 10 months they've been promised to roll out. But the problem is if you roll out a portal that quickly, I mean, you're going to have something to deliver, but it's going to be lackluster, it's not going to have any interest, it's not going to generate adoption. Take the time and do it right and really build on your first release. And essentially, James Robertson also has some great credentials in terms of ideas. Every 6 months, be willing to do an upgrade to the portal so you've always got new stuff to bring people back to and show interest. That's the thing to do. Continuously, iteratively improve the portal.